Hello and welcome back to the Squash Bagel. In the previous video, I showed that I received the Carboflex V2 120, which is here by my side. And we did a little bit of unboxing and unwrapping. And as you can see now, there have been a couple of modifications and changes that I've made. And I think after about it's about 10 days, no, I lie, 2 weeks, I'm pretty happy with the setup that I have now. So with respect to the content of this video, we're just going to talk about some of the changes that I've made and gone through some discussion points and considerations that I had to make, and I guess and what the pros and cons are of the Tecnifibre XTop Carboflex V2. It's quite a mouthful at the end of the day, so I'm just calling it the V2. So with respect to the first video, as mentioned, it came with the Dynamax VP strings, I think the 1.25mm string. So the majority of the time that I spent was actually with the default strings. And with respect to that, I was still enjoying the racket, but could definitely feel that the tension was a bit too high for me. Some players that I play with or practice with who string at higher tensions, such as 27, 28, actually did enjoy it. So I put it in their hands and they actually seemed to enjoy the racket as it was. And that seems to be some feedback from quite a few players, and I think tension is obviously something that is quite personal with respect to how your gameplay is and what it is that you're looking for in a racket. But it seems like some players really enjoyed the high tension that it came with. So if you are a player that likes the 27, 28 pound region or range of tension and don't mind the Dynamax VP string, then I guess it is a suitable configuration for you. Keep the strings in. So I played with it, I was enjoying it, but it just felt like it lacked a little bit something. And with respect to that, that sort of led me towards changing a couple of things. So first thing that I did was get rid of the factory grip, put on a new grip, just to see if it made a bit of a difference. And it definitely does make a difference changing a grip. It just feels a little bit more comfortable. Sometimes a racket can feel a little bit more maneuverable depending on what it is that you try. Then I also tried a configuration where I put on an overgrip, so sort of layered the normal grip quite thin. Currently, as I said, with respect to what I do have now, there's a little bit of overlap that you can see on the grip. I think this is the stock standard one, and obviously you can see it is quite high, which I'll explain a little bit how I got to that. But basically, instead of having a bit of overlap, tried it really thin and try that out for a little bit. That seemed to, it is summer here in South Africa, so obviously it is quite hot. Seemed to be slipping out of my hand quite a bit, so it felt nice, but there was a little bit of a, I don't know, it just lacked something in terms of how I could maneuver the racket. So after that, decided to put on an overgrip, so went with the tourner grip, which I still think is probably one of the best overgrips. In terms of personal preference, you do have players which use the purple one, I use the white one, and that sort of made the racket look really cool. Tried that out, started getting sort of a better feel, but still, as I said, this is still the factory string. And then eventually I realized that, well, I'm not going to keep the racket at that tension. So I think this is obviously a hard point for some people to sort of stomach with respect to testing in your racket. Are you really prepared to actually go all out and change the strings and experiment with tensions and grips, etc.? So with respect to that, I realized, well, I'm not going to keep the Dynamax strings in the future, and if I really want to test if this is the racket that I really want to use in the future going forward, I probably need to go towards a string and tension that I would be comfortable playing at. So with that being said, cut out the factory strings and put in the Tecnifibre 305, the 1.1mm. So that's an 18 gauge string, the thinnest one that they do have. So with respect to considerations as to how I got to that point, well, obviously spoke to a couple of individuals. Some of the suggestions that came out were obviously keep the string, so some people obviously enjoyed it. Some people automatically knew from the beginning that they were going to cut out the string. So I believe H1 Revs, I'm not too sure what the real name is, from Instagram reached out to me, and he said that, well, he put in the X1 biphase, which is a 1.18mm string, and strung it at 22 pounds. So obviously for me that is a bit low. I have experimented with low tensions, as I said, on the Harrow Vibe, which sort of makes sense. And I am assuming, based on the location and the common friend that we do have, he might be in the northern hemisphere, so it might be winter time. So I can obviously understand lower tension, especially in the colder climate. So for him, that seems to be working like a dream. Here it's obviously spring turning over to summer, so I thought at 22 I don't think I'm going to get much control. And you know, you obviously want to, yes, reduce the amount of power you put into a shot and use a lot more control, but I thought that was a little bit high for me. The other suggestion came from Ken, who also has a YouTube channel, which I think you guys should check out. It's called Tactile Racket Performance. Tactile Racket Performance. So he obviously reviews and actually shows a lot of his stringing that he does personally. He strings a lot of rackets. He also uses a wide variety of rackets, so I'm keen to see if he does a couple of videos similar to this with regards to reviewing rackets. And he went with 24 to 25 pounds. I think it was 25 pounds with the same racket, so it's also the 120 with the 1.135s. Blake Brutenell, I believe that's how I pronounce it, commented on the video that he went with the 26 to 27 range on the 1.1s, which also seems a little bit high for a thin gauge or 18 gauge string, but obviously he says it works for him and he's quite happy. And then I also checked in with John Sharp, the string doctor, and he suggested that I could go between 25 and 26 pounds. So taking all of those into consideration, the fact that I do like the 305 1.1, 1.2 is all right, but the 1.1 really seems to do it for me in the past. It's been a winning formula, so just decided to go with it and actually get a reel of it. So yeah, went with 25 and a half, so halfway between what John had suggested, 25 to 26. So just went 25 and a half, tried that out, and then was really happy. It seemed to have shaved a lot of weight off the head. So I guess also that's going to be a contributing factor to you. If you do feel like you like a little bit of weight on the head, that it does come with, so feel how it is like. You can obviously go with a thicker string, so the 1.2 or the 1.3 Tecnifibre 305 if you're really stuck with the 305. But if you obviously want to take a little bit of weight off the head, which I seem to like, the 1.1 is obviously a thinner string, any other of the thinner strings. So Ashway also makes a 1.15, and I think there is a 1.1 in their range, so that's obviously an option for you to reduce the head weight. And it definitely brought it towards a true feeling of a head-light balance. I would say it does come even out of the box, but definitely came and gave me a head-light balance with a little bit of weight on it. And obviously now with that being done, had the toner grip on there, so obviously started going through the grip configurations again. And then, as I said, pretty happy with, this is my second one, pretty happy with obviously a bit of overlap. I tend to, depending on the outcome, obviously you never know who it is that you're playing, if you want to slow it down, looking for a little bit more accuracy, or you can obviously outrun the opponent and need to pick up the pace, can shift my grip position from a high position to a low position or mid grip position, which is normally the default for me. But you obviously get situations where you need to really get the ball out of the deep corners, and then obviously you would choke up your grip a little bit higher. So this is the most versatile configuration for me, just because obviously I do like to change a couple of things. So that's with respect to the changes that I did make. With respect to my use, I have obviously used it, as I said, over the past 2 weeks. That has included a lot of practice matches, coaching, just general fun playing Kings. So it has been used relatively extensively, I would say. I would probably say that I play squash at the moment 6 days of the week. So normally it's only on Wednesday that I wouldn't be playing squash, and sometimes I will go out for a solo. So 6 days of the week I'm playing squash when I'm on a court. Monday and Tuesday are specific practice days. Wednesday I normally have church activities, so I'm not really doing anything there. That's normally break day, like today, giving me opportunity to shoot the video. And then Thursday is coaching, Friday is coaching, Saturday, Sunday. Sunday is normally also a bit of coaching, and then I get to play as well with some players. So have definitely played a lot of people using this, and obviously have had some time to accumulate a lot of feedback. Put the Harrow vibes away so I could give this my full attention. And with that being said, we're obviously going to talk about some of the pros and cons. Let's actually talk about the cons first, because I think that's going to be quite a short list, which is a bit of a giveaway. But with respect to cons, not much. Obviously, we do have, we call that XTop technology, which is a pro, but also a con with regards to the fact that once you get through the certain layer, you can obviously get a bit of damage. So if I can get this to focus. And yeah, obviously a bit of contact with the wall lets you start to see that XTop layer. I do believe it's a bit better than the previous versions. Even in the earliest sort of weeks that I tried the older XTop, I think it was the 130 that I reviewed, where I played with, was able to really expose that XTop layer quite easily. This one does seem to be obviously a bit better, but as I said, with the white exterior, you tend to see that obviously a lot more. So that's probably one of the cons, I would say. But with respect to XTop technology, meaning you get a bit more head speed, some people have said that's a bit of, you know, marketing, but yeah, technically speaking, even if it is, I do generally feel the same way. And yeah, I think in terms of cons, as I said, when you get the racket by itself or straight out of the shop, the high tension doesn't do it any favors, but some people really do like it. So for some people, it's a winning formula. But apart from that, not really much. Really have enjoyed the racket, so let's go to pros. If you remember, and it's probably a racket which I think is underrated, if you are a player that is looking for, you know, a teardrop, I still think that the Gel Macon Raw Pro 2.0 and probably the 2.1, I haven't had an opportunity to see or test that one, is probably, as I said, a really good racket. It just lacked a little bit with regards to weight. And when you weigh up these two rackets, this is obviously a lot heavier. So this, for me, in terms of teardrops, does everything that the Gel Macon does with the extra weight that you need to get that power through to the back. So I really enjoyed, with the configuration that I do have, I've really enjoyed being able to sort of carve and put shape on the ball. It's only something that I've obviously started experimenting the last few days, because eventually the weight in the head did not feel so heavy. That allowed me to obviously get that maneuverability, and in terms of the grip configuration, that just so that I could interlace my fingers into the grip quite nicely. Really nice, and really able to shape that ball, which gives you a lot of good running lines. So that's a real positive. As I said, with the string that you do choose, I obviously chose the 1.1, just giving me a lot of those extra options. So anything that I probably have said that I'm forgetting now in terms of pros for the Gel Macon, I think gets further enhanced because of the extra weight that it does have. Absolutely great with regards to power, absolutely great with regards to control. I have taken in so many volley drop shots just in practice situations, so drills, and also just matches, which I won't say I was hoping for, but really being able to just put that ball in the neck or to fade it into sidewall quite easily. So I've really been happy with that. And as I said, I'm not too sure with regards to people's tensions. I think that also is attributed to a 25.5 tension on this type of string. So you're going to get a lot more cut on the ball. You're going to get a lot of power on the ball. And I think those are contributing factors which allow me to do that a lot more frequently. I'm a big fan with regards to the color cosmetics. I know some people do like, I was actually speaking to a friend called Andrew Belling, who's obviously a person that I've mentioned a lot on this channel. He actually likes the color scheme of the Airshaft 125, but I really enjoy this configuration. As I said, with regards to grips, I'm obviously just sticking to the colors that they do have there. So for me, colors and, you know, aesthetics are a factor. So I like the fact that I can put on a black grip, a red grip, a blue grip, a white grip, obviously, and it really still looks quite nice. It does stand out quite nicely. And yeah, what else? As I said, the only con I can think about is the durability, but I really enjoy this racket. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I was a bit, not hesitant or scared. You know, there have been reports, obviously, that, you know, the 125 has a little bit more power, but I don't know how much extra power you would want to have. With regards to tension, if I ever feel like I need more power, I can obviously reduce the tension down to 25 or 24.5, especially when it comes to winter time. But I've really thoroughly enjoyed this racket. I am really thoroughly enjoying this racket. So much so that I put the vibes aside. Even though it is summer, I thought I'd actually use the vibes a lot more, because we're moving obviously into summer, as I said, so the ball is a lot more lively, but I have not lost the control. In terms of flex and feel on the racket, it isn't as stiff as the previous ones, at least in my opinion. That being the Airshaft per se. The one question that people want to know, how does it feel compared to a XTop 125? I have no idea. I never played with the XTop 125, and I think that's a separate you can never get the same configuration, so there's always going to be questions around what tension. So I don't have the capacity and capability of a PDH Sport to sort of take two rackets out and string them to the same tension and put them side by side and test. Probably leave that comment, or ask that question to PDH Sport on one of their videos, drop it underneath there, and then they can probably give you some sort of feedback. I'm not too sure how it compares to the 125. This is their first 120 that they've ever sort of made with regards to frame weight. True 120s. So yeah, if I wanted to do a comparison of the 125 and the 120 and of the 125s being the V1 and V2, I would obviously have had to have played with the previous XTop 125 and then bought a 125 V2. But the 125 V2 just didn't interest me. So 120, as I said, doesn't seem to be covered anyway. There's a lot of videos around the 125, so I think it's personal preferences that people will have. And once again, the best advice I would say is just try it out, ask a friend. So even the other individuals that I know who do have the 125 have different strengths, which is going to give it a different characteristic. I think people do realize, but at the same time, it's also something you should be more mindful of, how much a string can really bring life to a racket. And the other players that I do know who play with the 125s may not have the 1.1s in them. I think the 1.1 string, at least specifically in Port Elizabeth where we live, I have to bring that in from an external source. None of the shops carry the 1.1 millimeter, so I have to get that from another source and actually keep that reel by myself. So it's not something that everyone is walking around with. So to have a fair comparison with respect to overall weights and stuff like that, they can be similar because of factory tolerances. So you will pick up maybe a V2 or a V1 125, which might seem a bit lighter than the other one, but remember, as we said, factory tolerances, you can go +5, ±, or plus 5 grams or -5 grams in terms of what is listed as the frame weight. So with that being said, I'm not too sure how it plays compared to a lot of other rackets, and I think it's quite unfair to do that unless you are going to specifically compare apples to apples, meaning that you're going to put on the same string tension, the same string, and yeah. Other than that, I'm thoroughly pleased with this racket. Definitely, unless there, God forbid that something has to happen to that, all of a sudden I start getting hairline cracks, or there becomes a durability issue, I don't see any need or desire at this moment in time to move on from this racket, apart from situations where people sort of get new rackets and just ask me to test, or I can get to test them. But in terms of my personal collection and me going to actually buy out rackets, I don't feel the need at this moment in time, just from the last 2 weeks, to actually experiment with any other teardrops, because this is actually really nice. With regards to the traditional shape rackets, maybe the only one of interest that would catch my attention is probably any of the new Dunlops that come out next year, although I doubt that there will be major changes to those, and maybe a head radical 120, which I have hit with, but obviously with the stock standard strings, and I think with a factory grip once, but even then it wasn't sort of an extensive period of time to give a thorough review. Reviews like this do take time, and if you want to actually talk about all the pros and cons, I think I do address that early on in the videos, where I will tell you that yes, I've had a lot of time to play with it, or I haven't had a lot of time to play with it, so take it with a pinch of salt. This one I've had a lot of time to play with, and I'm going to continue playing with, as I said, unless something has to happen with regards to durability. I don't see myself moving from this. The Carboflex is very popular for a specific reason, and it was actually really good to revisit it, because I think I had lost the appreciation for it to the Heritage version 1, and I don't think the Heritage version 2 is really anything compared to the 1, although this, in terms of the XTop V2, definitely feels a lot more like the old Heritage rackets, even more similar to the X Speeds, I would feel and say. So yeah, really enjoyed this racket. If you can get your hands on it, sure, please do try it out, try a friend. I'm starting to see a lot more kids testing out their friends' rackets and also trying them out. So I think I've seen a 130 floating about when I was walking past. I don't know the individual that owns it, but at least I've seen a lot more of these rackets, so it seems to be taking off by storm. Although I have noticed and this was obviously passing by in the pro shop that we do have at our squash club, that the new Dynergy, which is a 130 gram, they don't have the sort of hole that they used to have in the past, but the newer Dynergy looks very similar to the V2, and obviously the Dynergy has a bumper. So the only thing that will be missing is probably the groove in the shaft that these new V2s do have. There's sort of a groove here that you can see comes in down there. The new Dynergy doesn't have that, but if you had to put the rackets on top of each other, I think you'd pretty much assume that it's the same racket. Obviously, the fact that you don't have the groove and also the bumper. So if that's something that you're torn between, and you can actually see the two, compare the Carboflex 130 and the Dynergy 130, and you could save yourself obviously a couple $100. I think in South Africa, you'd save yourself about 1,000 Rand. Plus you get a bumper, so you get one con out of the way. The 130 and the 135 have thicker shafts compared to the V2 125 and 120. So if you are sort of on a tight budget and don't know what to do, check out the Dynergy. I think it could be a very good alternative if you wanted to experiment in getting a new racket, but also get a bumper strip. So that's also a positive to have there. Yeah, who's the racket for? I don't know. You'd have to tell me if it's for you or not. Let me know if you have had an opportunity to test out any of the V2s and what tensions you are playing at. But yeah, it will be quite interesting to know. I'm obviously reading a lot of the comments and questions that people do have. If I do have the answer, I will be able to give it to you. If not, hopefully point you towards the right directions. As I said, with respect to Ken's channel, which is Tactile Racket Performance, give his channel some love and give him some support so he can also start doing some sort of other reviews from a different perspective. He's obviously out in America, so he might have a opportunity to bring different type of rackets to his channel, as well as different questions with regards to stringing, intention and support there. Obviously also don't forget John Sharp's channel, the String Doctor, and he's always willing and able to give advice with regards to tension, so also give him a shot. And that's about it. Till next time, take care, bye.